They said women can't fly combat helicopters. Captain Riley Thompson heard it from the very man who tried to ground her. But when 500 soldiers were trapped behind enemy lines, guess who was first in the air? He thought she'd crack. What he didn't know, she'd trained for this storm her entire life. Stick around, because when her Apache roared through fire, and doubt it wasn't just soldiers she rescued, it was the truth. And the man who tried to stop her. He ended the mission grounded by his own shame. Where are you watching from? And what's the time there? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to join our community. Captain Jake Morrison's fingers traced the polished brass nameplate on his desk, each letter a testament to his 2 decades of combat experience. Through the office window, the morning sun caught his reflection. Ramrod straight posture, impeccable uniform, and the slight curl of disdain forming on his lips as he watched Captain Riley Thompson stride across the tarmac toward the Apache helicopters. "Look at that walk," he muttered, jaw clenching as Thompson's boots clicked against the concrete. Too light, too hesitant. His hand instinctively reached for the combat medal mounted on his wall, its surface catching the light. 20 years of missions, sacrifices, and ironclad traditions seemed to mock him through its gleam. The sound of Thompson's pre-flight checks drifted through his window. Her movements were precise, methodical, troublingly so. Captain Jake Morrison's grip tightened on his coffee mug as he recalled her simulation scores from yesterday. Perfect execution. Flawless emergency procedures. His teeth ground together as he remembered the whispers in the briefing room. Best scores we've seen in years. Simulations aren't combat, he growled, adjusting his wing pin with deliberate force. They don't bleed, they don't scream, they don't test your true nerve. The pin, a symbol of everything he'd fought to preserve in military aviation, felt heavy against his chest. The base-wide alert system shattered his brooding. Emergency deployment required. 500 soldiers trapped behind enemy lines in Sector 7. Immediate air support needed. Captain Jake Morrison's heart surged with familiar combat readiness, but his stomach twisted as he saw Thompson already sprinting toward her helicopter flight suit half-zipped. "Ho! Hold!" His voice boomed across the tarmac as he burst from his office. "This is a combat lead mission. Stand down, Thompson." The words tasted like victory on his tongue. Thompson turned her face a mask of professional calm that made his blood boil. "Sir, with respect, I'm already prepped, and experience matters more than readiness." "Captain." He cut her off, relishing the way other pilots paused to watch. 20 years of actual combat trumps any simulation score. His wingpin caught the sun, throwing sharp light across her face. But something in her eyes, not fear, not submission, but pure, unwavering competence, sent an unfamiliar shiver down his spine. For a fraction of a second, Captain Jake Morrison felt the first hairline crack in his certainty. A young lieutenant nearby whispered to his colleague phone, discreetly recording the exchange, "Classic Morrison." The hashtag #military_bias would start trending within the hour. The base commander's voice crackled over the radio. "Captain Thompson's Apache is positioned closest to the extraction point. Time is critical." Captain Jake Morrison's world tilted slightly on its axis. His hand found his wingpin again, clutching it like a talisman against change. In his mind, he could hear his old flight instructor's words. "The sky doesn't care what you look like, son. It only cares if you can fly." The lives of 500 soldiers hung in the balance. His pride wrestled with protocol tradition, grappled with efficiency. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the crossroads of 2 eras, feeling the weight of his nameplate, his medal. His 20 years of certainly beginning to press down on him like G-forces in a dive. Would his iron grip on tradition cost lives today? Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever seen outdated beliefs threaten real progress. 20 years I've soared through these skies, defining what a combat pilot should be. Every medal, every mission reinforced what I knew was right. But today, watching Thompson's perfect pre-flight sequence, something shifts beneath my feet. When did certainty become a cage rather than wings? The trapped soldiers don't care about tradition. They just need the best pilot available. Have you ever felt your bedrock beliefs begin to crack? Officer Jake Morrison stood before the mission board, his fingers unconsciously tracing the wing pin on his chest as he reviewed the rescue operation details. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across the briefing room, much like the dark thoughts clouding his judgment. 20 years of combat aviation experience screamed that women didn't belong in Apache cockpits, yet Captain Thompson's volunteer response still rang in his ears, challenging everything he believed. His mind wandered to Major Richards, his first commanding officer at Fort Bragg 15 years ago. "Some things don't change, Morrison," Richards had said over whiskey. "Women crack under pressure. It's biology." The words had shaped his career, becoming a mantra he never questioned until now. The data on his desk told a different story. Thompson's combat hours 200. Successful extractions 43. Perfect landing record in hostile conditions. Morrison's hand trembled slightly as he compared her statistics to his own early records. Science mocked his prejudice. Studies from the Air Combat Command showed no significant performance differences between male and female pilots under extreme stress. "Sir," Lieutenant Garcia's voice interrupted his thoughts. "The Pentagon sent Thompson's full service record." Morrison's stomach tightened as he scrolled through commendations that mirrored his own. Each achievement forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth. His bias wasn't about capability. It was about control. The whirring of helicopter blades outside grew louder, matching his mounting anxiety. Morrison walked to the window, watching Thompson pre-flight check her Apache with precision that matched his own exacting standards. His wing pin felt like it was burning through his chest as he remembered assigning her the most dangerous extraction zone. "What's really bothering you, Jake?" Colonel Matthews had asked yesterday, noticing Morrison's resistance to Thompson's deployment. "Is it her skills, or is it that she's making you question everything you've built your authority on?" The question haunted him as he discovered other female pilots' complaints buried in personnel files, all dismissed under his watch. Each report bore his signature, each rejection justified, with the same tired phrases about unit cohesion and combat readiness. The evidence of his systematic bias lay before him like a prosecution's exhibit. His office walls, lined with awards and photographs, suddenly felt like a museum of outdated thinking. A 2023 military leadership study on his desk highlighted the superior performance of diverse combat units, mocking his carefully constructed worldview. Have you ever wondered if defending the old way is harder than embracing the new type change if you faced this challenge? Morrison's reflection in his office window looked older, wearier. The wing pin that once represented absolute certainty now felt like a weight of responsibility. Through the glass, he watched younger pilots gathering around Thompson, drawn to her natural leadership, the very quality he'd refused to see. A message alert broke his reverie. Emergency brief update, extraction window narrowing. The timestamp read 1400 hours. 4 hours since the mission briefing, and his decision to test Thompson was starting to feel less like leadership and more like sabotage. The helicopter blades continued their rhythmic beating, now sounding less like authority and more like a countdown to his reckoning. Morrison touched his wing pin one last time, the metal cool against his fingers, as the first doubts about tomorrow's mission began to surface. Not about Thompson's abilities, but about his own judgment. "The old guard always falls," his father, a retired colonel, had warned him once. "Not because they're wrong, but because they refuse to see they might be." Standing in his office, watching Thompson prepare for tomorrow's impossible mission, Morrison finally understood what that meant. The sun was setting over Fort Liberty as he left his office, casting long shadows that seemed to point accusingly at him. His wing pin caught the last rays of light, reminding him that tomorrow's mission would test more than just pilot skill. It would test his ability to face his own prejudices before they cost lives. Share this story if you've ever had to confront your own biases. Morrison Legacy. Captain Jake Morrison grips the edge of the tactical display, his knuckles white, as he watches Captain Riley Thompson's Apache weave through the storm of anti-aircraft fire. The same pilot he'd dismissed, mocked, and tried to ground was now dancing with death to save their trapped soldiers. His cherished wingpin feels impossibly heavy on his chest, each glint of light like an accusation. "She's taking fire from 3 positions now." Lieutenant Chen reports, his voice tight. Morrison's stomach churns as Thompson's helicopter executes another impossible maneuver, the radio crackling with her calm coordination of the evacuation. The ops room falls deadly quiet as an RPG streaks past Thompson's Apache. Morrison's hand instinctively rises to his wingpin, remembering how he'd polished it just this morning while telling the squadron she didn't belong here. Now watching her expertise on display, each of his previous arguments sounds hollow in his memory. Hortum. 4th extraction complete, 20 more soldiers secured. Thompson's voice cuts through the tension, professional as ever. No hint of fear, no trace of the uncertainty Morrison had so confidently proclaimed she'd show under pressure. The other pilots exchange glances, their earlier snickers replaced with grudging respect. The distinctive whine of stressed rotors fills the command frequency. Morrison recognizes the sound immediately, tail rotor strain from too many high-G maneuvers. In any other situation, he'd order an immediate abort. His mouth opens to give the command, but the words die in his throat as Thompson's Apache banks hard, diving back into the fire for another run. "Captain Thompson, your tail rotor readings are critical." Morrison manages his authority, cracking. She acknowledges with a curt, "Noted, sir," and continues the mission. Each passing minute feels like an eternity as Morrison watches her radar signature weave through the danger zone, his previously unshakable certainty about her capabilities crumbling like sand. Social media alerts start pinging on nearby phones. Someone's streaming the rescue operation. Thompson Hero is trending along with clips of his earlier tirade against her assignment to the unit. Morrison's face burns as he reads comments calling for his resignation. His carefully constructed world of authority and control starts to unravel with each new share, each damning comparison between his prejudice and her heroism. Have you ever watched your certainties dissolve in real-time? Morrison's thoughts race as he obsessively adjusts his wingpin, the symbol of command that had given him such pride, now feeling like a brand of shame. The very skills he'd claimed Thompson lacked are saving lives while his own biases are exposed to the world. A warning alarm blares. Thompson's Apache is running on fumes. But instead of returning to base, she radios, "Final group spotted moving to extract." Morrison wants to order her back to assert the control he's always maintained, but the words feel poisonous in his mouth. How can he question her judgment now? The ops room holds its collective breath as Thompson's fuel gauge drops into the red. Morrison's fingers trace his wingpin one last time before slowly unpinning it, holding it in his trembling palm. The weight of his mistakes, his prejudice, his wounded pride, all concentrated in this small piece of metal that suddenly means nothing compared to Thompson's courage. Mission complete. All targets secured. Returning to base. Thompson's voice remains steady, even as warning indicators scream in the background. Morrison stares at his reflection in the tactical display, barely recognizing the man who just hours ago had been so certain of his superiority. The viral hashtag continues to spread. Thompson Hero evolves into Thompson Morrison Resign as more details of his discrimination emerge. His phone buzzes with messages from command, each one another nail in the coffin of his career. But watching Thompson's Apache limp home, Morrison realizes his career isn't what he should be mourning. It's the years wasted enforcing barriers that never should have existed. Drop a 2 if you've ever had to face your own prejudices crumbling before your eyes. The base will remember this day, not for Morrison's fall from grace, but for Thompson's rise above the barriers he'd tried so hard to maintain. As the rescue footage goes viral, Morrison finally understands his greatest failure wasn't in his command, but in his heart. The setting sun casts long shadows across Fort Liberty's tarmac as I, Captain Jake Morrison, stand frozen in the control tower, watching Captain Thompson's Apache weave through enemy fire on her final approach. My wing pin feels like it's burning against my chest, the same pin I'd smugly polished this morning while arguing against emotional female pilots in combat roles. The radio crackles. Liberty Base, this is Riley Thompson, structural integrity at 18%. Final 3 soldiers secured. Her voice remains steady despite the visible damage to her aircraft. The same steadiness I'd mocked for months as robotic and unnatural in my reports. Thompson abort mission. That's an order. The words catch in my throat as the Apache's tail section starts smoking. But she keeps going, just like she had for the past 14 hours, ignoring my increasingly desperate commands to stand down. My hands shake as I watch the live feed. Social media is exploding. Check your courage. Has no gender trending nationwide as phone footage of her previous landings floods every platform. CNN is running continuous coverage of what they're calling the Liberty Miracle. Each successful extraction run demolishing years of my carefully constructed arguments about women in combat aviation. The Apache's engines scream in protest as she brings the craft down for the 61st time. Metal groans against metal. Last 3 secured. She reports, her voice finally showing strain. All 500 accounted for. I rip the wing pin from my chest, the sharp edge drawing blood, a fitting punishment for my arrogance. The thunderous sound of her emergency landing rattles the tower windows. Get medical here now! I shout, my voice cracking as I sprint down the stairs. Years of prejudice falling away with each step. The scent of burning fuel and scorched metal fills the air as I reach the tarmac. The Apache's tail rotor finally gives out pieces scattering across the runway like my shattered preconceptions. Thompson emerges from the cockpit helmet under her arm, standing tall despite obvious exhaustion. Our eyes meet across the smoking wreckage. Captain Thompson. I manage my voice, thick with shame. I was wrong. About everything. She just nods, then collapses. As medical teams rush forward, my phone buzzes with notifications. The base commander's message cuts through. Morrison official inquiry tomorrow. 0800. I look at my wing pin now lying in the dust. Years of fighting against change of filing complaints of creating obstacles, all exposed as hollow prejudice in the face of true courage. Time to share this, sir. A young private holds up his phone, showing me the viral footage of Thompson's final landing. The world should see what real leadership looks like. Yes, I whisper, watching Thompson being loaded into an ambulance. They should see everything, including how wrong I was. Full nuts. Share this video if you believe Out of Your Courage has no gender. Drop a 3. If Thompson's bravery changed your mind like it changed Morrison's. My wing pin catches the last ray of sunlight, a reminder of the privilege I'd wielded as a weapon. Tomorrow, I'll face the consequences of my actions. But tonight I watch the ambulance pull away, carrying the pilot who didn't just save 500 lives. She saved me from my own prejudice. The base falls quiet, except for the gentle ping of cooling metal from the Apache's wreckage. Each sound echoes like a reminder. Courage knows no gender, and change begins with admitting you were wrong. Captain Jake Morrison's hands tremble as he grips the pen, each carefully chosen word, on the Medal of Honor recommendation form. feeling like both confession and absolution. The office is silent except for his ragged breathing and the quiet scratch of ink against paper marking his journey from arrogance to understanding. "For extraordinary heroism and exceptional valor," he writes. Remembering how Thompson's Apache had swooped through that deadly firefight, her precision and skill saving not just the 500 trapped soldiers, but his own soul from the prison of prejudice he'd built around it. His chest tightens as he recalls his previous dismissals, his cutting remarks, his deliberate attempts to undermine her. The morning sun catches his wing pin, still stained with desert dust from that fateful mission. Morrison removes it slowly, turning it over in his hands. 20 years of pride and prejudice captured in a single piece of metal. The pin makes a soft click as he places it on Thompson's empty desk, a quiet sound that echoes like thunder in his mind. "Your hand steady," Colonel Matthews asks from the doorway, watching Morrison complete the recommendation. "Steadier than my conscience," Morrison responds, his voice rough with emotion. "I've been wrong for so long, sir, so damn wrong." The ceremony hall fills with a deafening roar of applause as Thompson accepts her Medal of Honor. Morrison stands at attention, his spine straight, but his eyes humid with unshed tears. The viral videos of her rescue mission play on screens behind her. Thompson's flight, still trending after 3 weeks, a testament to how her courage transcended military walls to inspire millions. Captain Thompson. Morrison speaks into the microphone, his voice carrying across the hushed audience. "Your actions didn't just save 500 lives that day. They saved me from my own blindness. You've changed military aviation forever. And you've changed me." The words taste like truth on his tongue, sweet and bitter simultaneously. His transformation feels complete as he watches Thompson's family beam with pride, her mother clutching a handkerchief, her father standing tall in his own veteran's uniform. Later, alone in his office, Morrison opens his laptop to find thousands of comments on the ceremony live stream. Morrison's growth trends alongside Tonto Thompson's flight, his public acknowledgement of his errors resonating with others struggling to overcome their own prejudices. He touches the empty spot on his uniform, where his wing pin used to rest, now prominently displayed on Thompson's desk, as a permanent reminder of change. The setting sun catches the blank space, and Morrison finally understands true strength lies not in clinging to power, but in having the courage to admit when you've been wrong. 20 years of experience taught me everything except what mattered most. He whispers to the empty room. Courage knows no gender, and wisdom sometimes comes from facing our own failures. Morrison closes his eyes, feeling lighter than he has in decades. Tomorrow he'll begin implementing new training protocols, ensuring no other pilot faces the barriers he once erected. But tonight, he simply sits with his transformation, grateful for the pilot who didn't just save 500 lives. She saved him from himself. Hoin. Drop a 4 if this story of transformation moved you. Share to inspire others to examine their own prejudices. Together we can build a military and a world where courage knows no bounds.